So let's first start with doing the four problems of just proving that these two triangles are congruent, where all we need to do is just label our pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here and drag this up. Okay, so in number one, we're given that D is the midpoint of AC. So if D is in the middle, what that means then is that it bisects the segment, so those two are now congruent. BD is shared for both triangles, so that would mean that this is congruent in both sets of triangles. And then we have that AB is congruent to CB, so AB and CB. So now that we have that, we're looking at triangle ABD. So notice how we start at A, we go along the side that has 3 hash marks in it, and then we go along the side that has 2 hash marks in it. So we're going to start the same way over here, go through the 3 and then the 2. So triangle, whoops, CBD. And then it's by the fact that we have side, side, side. That's our information. So when you're naming the triangles, it's important to remember that you have to name them in a very specific way. So based on the way the first one is written, the second one you have to use and name it in that exact same order. All right, let me slide this up a little and move to number 2. So we have first that LM is congruent to PN. So LM is congruent to PN. And then we have that they're parallel as well. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that in there. So those are parallel. Okay, so what else do we have? Well, we have that this LN is congruent to, in both triangles. And then we have parallel lines. Well, if we've got parallel lines, then that means we've got a transversal, which would be LN. So if we have a transversal, what we have is alternate interior angles. So those two angles would be congruent, and then these two angles here would be congruent as well. So what we have based on our information is angle, side, angle. So I'm going to go ahead and put angle, side, angle. And then look at our information here. So triangle MNL. So MNL, so the angle that isn't marked. So we start with our angle that isn't marked here, which is P. Then we went to the angle with 2 arcs in it. So we need to go to the angle with 2 arcs in it here, which is L. And then lastly to N. Moving to number 3. We have ST is perpendicular to RU, so we've got a right angle on both sides here, and then RS is congruent to US, so this is congruent to US, and then this is the same in both. Now, when we're looking at this picture, this would actually be side-side angle, but that's not one of our 4 types of triangle congruences. However, it's a right triangle with a leg and a hypotenuse congruent. So this would be your hypotenuse leg. And so TUS, so starting at the right angle, going to U, the side that is not marked, and then to S. So we start with our right angle, we go along the side that is not marked, which would be R, and then we end at S. All right, and one more. We have BD bisects angle ABC. So if this bisects it, it means it cuts it into 2 congruent pieces, so one here and one here. And then side AB is congruent to CB right there. All right, so I'm just going to fix the way that was. There we go, that looks better. And then we have a side here that is shared between the 2 triangles. So what we have is side, angle, side. So ABD, so we're starting at the angle that's not marked, going along the side that is marked with 1 line, and ending at the 1 arc. So we'll do the exact same thing on this side. Start at C, go to B, and then to D. And there we go. So that's how you do those problems. So now in the other one, what we're going to do is deal with the same types of information, only we're going to have a little bit of reasons and things to write in. So remember that the second page, can I actually just go to it? This page right here has all the stuff that we're going to use. So any reasons that I fill in are all coming from this page of this assignment. So let's look at this first one, and you always want to start with filling in the information that you have and anything that you can, any conclusions you can make based on that information. So first we have PQ is parallel to ST. So I'm going to draw in the arrows to show that these two are parallel. Okay, so those are parallel. And then PR is congruent to TR, so that was given to us. PR and TR congruent. So what else can we get based on this information? Before I even start filling anything in, what else can we get? Well, if we have parallel lines here, we know that we have alternate interior angles. So those are alternate interior, and these are also alternate interior. Okay, and then these right here are vertical angles. Okay, so that's all the information we have. Now let's look at these steps and fill in our reasons. We know that no matter what, our first one is always a given. All right, now our second one, PR is congruent to TR. Well, that also came from the given, so I'm going to go ahead and write that in right there. Now we have angle P is congruent to angle T, which we have marked in our picture. And how did we know that? Well, we knew it because they were parallel lines. So what I'm going to say then is just that alternate interior angles are congruent. And so I kind of shortened up, the information that I had from that second page, but that's basically the gist of it, is that those are congruent. Then we have angle PRQ is congruent to angle TRS. Well, we have that marked, PRQ being this angle here, and then TRS being that angle right there. So with those being congruent, that would be because vertical angles are congruent. Okay, and so then our last statement is that the two triangles are congruent. Well, looking at the information given, we didn't do anything with these two, right? We only dealt with this angle, this side, and this angle. And so what we have here is angle, side, angle. And there you go. The second one, so we're going to do the same kind of thing. But let's label the information after. Let's see what we get as we work our way through, okay? So RZ bisects TC, that is a given. And then we have that TZ is congruent to SZ. So TZ is congruent to SZ. Well, how do we know that? We know that because bisect means it cuts it to two congruent parts. So we are going to write definition of bisect, because that's what it means. All right, now we have RZ is perpendicular to TS, which is from our given, so I'll write given. And if it's perpendicular, it means we've got right angles here. And so now we have angle RZS and angle RZT are right angles. Well, that's what it means to be perpendicular. So what I'm going to have you write in that spot would be definition of perpendicular. So definition of perpendicular lines / segments. Okay. Then I have that angle RZS is congruent to angle RZT, and that's just because all right angles are congruent. I filled that one in for you. RZ is congruent to RZ, so this is congruent to itself. That would be using the reflexive property, because it's the same thing on both sides, and we're using RZ for this triangle up here, and then we're using RZ for this triangle down here. All right, so now how do we know that these two things are congruent? Well, given that it's a right triangle, you might want to say hypotenuse leg. However, we don't have the hypotenuse, which is the side across from the right angle. We don't have any information about that side. What we do have is a side, another side, and the angle that's in between the two. So this would be side, angle, side. Okay? Now let's move on to our last one, and we will fill in our information as we go along. So number one, AB is congruent to DC. That is a given. Second one, ABC and CDA are right angles. That was also a given, so that's kind of nice, makes it easy. All right, so let's go ahead. AB is congruent to DC. Mark that. ABC is a right angle, and CDA is also a right angle. And so that's that triangle ABC is a right triangle, and CDA is also a right triangle. Now this one is actually not in the list that I gave you. Somehow I managed to leave this one out. So this is a definition of a right triangle. So this one, it was not in there. All right, then we have that AC is congruent to AC, which is itself. Anything congruent to itself is reflexive property. So go ahead and write that in. All right, and then we have that the triangles are congruent. And so if we're looking at this, again, right triangle, so initially hypotenuse leg should pop into your head. And if you look at this, that is exactly what we have. AC is the hypotenuse and CD is the leg. And then over here, AC is the hypotenuse and AB is the leg. So we would write hypotenuse leg. Okay, so there is your information. Hopefully you listen to it because that's going to help you a lot more than anything else. Just make sure to mark your pictures and fill in the information as you go along, and it'll make things very easy on you.